All right, everyone. Bill Maher got it right again, this time on the concept of the interplay between fascism and firearm rights and how parts of the left don't know what the fuck they're talking about with regards to them. When Maher says something that is intelligent, that is correct, he's typically attacked by people who normally they have no real problem with him. Like if he's talking about like gay rights or something, he's like, yeah, I support gay rights. He's like, yeah, people should be able to smoke weed and the drug war is a joke and stuff. They nod their heads and they say, oh yeah, understand. Then he'll talk about a few little things like, not hyperventilating all day about just race or sex. That's not an actual campaign platform. And he gets like lambasted even though, he is strategically correct in the political sense. And then on something like this, what he's pointing out is totally true. If a person thinks that Donald Trump is the next Adolf Hitler, then they should not be clamoring for more gun control. They should be clamoring for far less of it. In fact, you should have a Democratic Party that says we want to abolish all of the firearms laws in the country and let people own RPGs and stuff. If you think he's Adolf Hitler and he's going to have armies of millions of evil Klan robe wearing goons going down the streets to lynch everyone who came from Mexico, then you should absolutely want people to be able to defend themselves. I would hope. Here's the folly of it. The folly of it fundamentally on the gun control debate boils down to people not trusting their fellow citizens. That's ultimately, it boils down to being a paranoid busybody if you're in favor of extreme gun control. I'll tell you why. If such a situation were to happen, the hope should be that your fellow citizens primarily are not interested in supporting some fascistic regime. They support the concept of freedom. They want other people to be able to do what they want to do, not be abused and gunned down. The hope is that, therefore, if there's an armed citizenry, most of them are going to rise up against the tyrannical government. But if you're paranoid, if you believe that your average gun owner is evil anyway, you probably don't understand that basic concept. And if you think the president is going to become a totalitarian imperialist and start doing crazy shit, so far I've got no indicator that that's the fact. Look, we've got peace in Korea potentially. The Iran deal doesn't matter, despite everyone drumming it up constantly for the last few days. So far, Trump has not begun purging people in the street and gunning people down. Now, he hasn't even built his wall yet, and yet people still, I guess, believe that he's severe authoritarian. He is somewhat less authoritarian than the last few presidents we've had. Now, from a monarchist perspective, I still consider him on the authoritarian side, absolutely. I think his stance on weed, okay, that's fine. Letting the states handle it primarily, legalizing it over time. That's great. What about all the other drugs? That's still an authoritarian position. By the way, do you realize, I've told people this before, much like the Republican Party has not actually been a pro-gun party in some time, the Democrats are not an anti-drug war party. You gotta understand this, it's a false dichotomy. You've got two positions that only seem distant because nobody's in the mainstream is taking up a position outside of that little tiny Overton window. So you've got the Republicans that say, no, medical pot's okay, but we don't want to legalize it. And you got the Dems saying legalize it, but neither party is saying, hey, legalize them all. Well, the Libertarians do, but they don't get enough airplay. I guess they try to shut them out of they try to shut out intelligent libertarians from the national conversation because we would take over. Very soon we would take over the country and the tax rate would be half of what it is now. So they only put insane, like the most out there ANCAPs or someone like Johnson whose brain is addled. They'll put them on CNN, but they won't let somebody like me go up on there. They're never going to let me do that. They'll never have a Mal New up there. I know he's more of an ANCAP, I think, than a monarchist, but he's sane, he's coherent. They're not going to invite him on their show. Not unless it's on something totally unrelated and they're going to talk over him. That's just not going to happen. They're not going to have Lionel Nation on. RT will have him on so that they can call him a Russian propagandist or something, I guess. But Maher is one of those people where he infuriates you sometimes. I actually respect him. I think on many things he's an old guard liberal. He represents a form of liberalism that has now been left behind by the social justice pink-haired crowd. And so they don't understand, they consider him a conservative basically. They're like, oh, Maher, he's basically a Republican. Okay, so he believes in 99% of the things that you do, fundamentally, but he deviates from you. He realizes that guns are not your enemy. And that the Democratic Party is basically, they're corporate sellouts and don't really represent liberalism anymore. Oh goodness, he's such an evil person. Oh yeah, and he understands Islam is an organized religion, not a race. Now that's the other problem. On any time he talks about Islam, he could make a 1-hour special on the sexual stuff he wants to do in a gay fashion to Jesus. And they would be roaring with laughter. Oh, how irreverent, blasphemous, highly culturally relevant. But if he makes one little quip about Islam, he's like, oh yeah, you do realize that if in Saudi Arabia, if you're gay, you get thrown off a building. Oh, you horrible bigot, horrible racist. And by the way, he's gun-toter now. He's turning into a Republican. Okay, no, he's turning into a libertarian on some things. Not on all. And he understands free speech. You know, when you make a career speaking, you probably have more of an appreciation for it, unless you're being told what to say. If you're pundit on TV, you just got a script. As someone who actually has to hold a conversation sometimes, you know, like he does, there's some comedian has to get up in front of people and sometimes they'll have to wing it. Yeah, they want free speech. They want to be able to tell edgy jokes. They want to be able to offend people. Hell, they hope they go viral on YouTube for offending someone. Don't let the comics fool you. Yeah, absolutely. They love the idea of that because it's free publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity. You know, you give a few pointers. You give a few pointers to certain people that will not be mentioned on this basic topic. It's what Trump does too, by the way. When people psychoanalyze him, there was a story earlier from Politico, actually, a few hours ago. They posted about Trump has mommy issues or something. No, he doesn't have mommy issues. He's good at branding himself. It's what he's done for his whole life. Look, he can only make so much money investing in real estate. He also had to build a brand. And so he did that by doing exactly what he's doing now with the United States and with the office of the presidency. Call it brash, irreverent, call it, you know, a weird or insulting or whatever. It's working, isn't it? He backed down North Korea, probably the second most difficult negotiation situation in the entire world after Israel and Palestine, which he quickly realized was too much even for him, I think. I think he's hoping that that'll just play out on its own, and he's sort of fiddling around in the back. He had Kushner over there. Kushner, though, has his own issues. Mueller, by the way, is endangering peace in the Middle East by by preventing Trump's inside circle from doing that sort of negotiating effectively. Mueller's really causing problems for this country. Maher, on the other hand, is telling liberals, hey, you've lost on this issue. You think Trump is going to come and try to drag your children off in the night? Wouldn't you want, you know, to be able to defend yourself? No, say the neoliberals. It's not a good idea because my fellow citizens can't be trusted. You know, they had no problem with Obama giving machine guns to cartels or to the FSA. They can have tanks and bombs and everything else. People overseas, they have nothing to do with the governance, taxes, or anything within the U.S. They're not involved. They're on a different continent. They can have weapons, or some cartel explicitly made up of criminals that also prostitute women, and they sell children as slaves, and they push drugs off on people and have people summarily executed on a whim just to frighten the Mexican government. They can have all sorts of machine guns, Fast and Furious, you know, something that nobody talks about anymore. Eric Holder is a moron. He still weighs in on politics as though he was relevant. That's the Democratic ethos. That's why Hillary Clinton lost. I talk about her later, too. She's turned herself into a complete laughingstock. She should become a comedian. She is funny. You know, it's all self-deprecating, but it's very, very funny. It's the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. That's about all. Peace out.